So this is one of our first examples of some of the storm damage that we had happen here in the park. This wasn't necessarily some of our first storm damage, that is later on, but this was more recent. It was one of our storms that happened 3-4 years ago, I believe. And this area was just completely demolished. Like, you can still see some of the areas back here that was flattened. And they needed to get some of this wood out because our woods are a standing timber box. And it still is, but this definitely helped it a little bit. So that's why the forest gate here in the park was actually created, was because they needed to get so much of the wood out. And it was just going to be open areas. They're like, why not utilize the space and make something that is beneficial for the public while helping the park in a different way. So we were able to come and do this 0.9 kilometer long forest gate, and it helped get rid of some of our forest fire, like fuel load, along with bringing in something new to the public that we don't have here in New Brunswick.
So here's some of the areas we were talking about, the stand types. You can see we've got a lot of fir, we got spruce, we got poplar. We're all in the mature to over mature age. If nothing is done, this can be the result very easily. And then you're looking at, are you willing to, and the park is able to, because they have different objectives. But if this was your woodlot, are you willing to accept this? And if you are, that's fine. This can be the result. You've got, it's the age. If you look at the poplar that's there, that's what they look like when they're over mature. The fact that there's even some still standing is a bit of a surprise, but they're going to continue. The more you open things up, the wind starts to move in and you have more blowdowns happening. So this is going to continue. The stands are getting older. It's starting to break up and fall down. And this is where Gareth's silviculture key that they created, Deanne has some of them if we wanted to try it. You know, what are you going to do with this? What do you think is going to come back here? You don't do anything here. What do you think you're going to, what's going to end up growing here?
Green stuff is already here.
So Gareth, you want to touch that one?
Well, I mean, I haven't taken a look at the site. It looks relatively rich. I haven't looked at the soil yet, but upland cedar is a good indicator of rich parent material, like nutrient rich. And the cedar looks good too, which means it's probably got clay in it, like for moisture retention in the summer. Like cedar can grow on rock, right? But it doesn't amount to much unless it gets enough moisture during the growing season, cedar. That being said, I'm sure it was old field. There's not a lot of species diversity to work through. The aspen has an intact root system, so you can already see that wherever there's enough light, the aspen is successfully suckering. So there's going to be a wall of root suckered vegetative production in the aspen that's already started.
This would be one of the areas that if you wanted to try to change your forest structure to something that is, because I think...
Yeah, I think I propagate other species in here.
Yes, definitely try to move some in.
And if the soil's rich enough, this would be where I plant my sugar maple.
There you go.
That's actually good to know.
There you go.
But and with the deer, like it's interesting, like the strategy of I can't remember the park manager, right? There is two strategies with this kind of restorative tree planting, or you either plant a few and protect them aggressively, or you just plant as many as you possibly can plant and hope for the best. There's different opinions on it and applied research in it, right? You know, if your seedlings are expensive, I would advise planting fewer and making sure they make it, right? Like you can, like the deer density here is, I don't have that problem in Stanley yet. Knock on wood, like the deer kind of yard up in Stanley and try to survive the winter right in the town because of the snow load in the hills, but that's going to change.
What about the thought of potentially seeding in areas?
Oh, I think so. I mean, oak is the prime example. Like I don't plant oak seedlings on my woodlot, I just plant acorns. Easy to get, cheap to get. The root system establishes natural. Even if they get browsed, the root system is established, they sprout back.
Okay.
Right? Every time I've planted an oak seedling, I've had something eat it. So
that is something that, you know, if you don't want to look at the cost of buying sugar maple or yellow birch or something, most people know somebody with an oak tree, and they are all over the ground. Either you throw them out there and ask the squirrels to bury them, because they will, or you can walk around and just take a little hole and stick them down in the ground.
All you need is a stick to drive them into the organic horizon of the soil, keep them covered. With what's happened here now, I would wait until the aspen cover's there before I put my sugar maple in. It would make it a little less likely to be browsed, because the deer will eat aspen as well. And sugar maple's shade tolerant. So like I'd let the aspen get up, and then I'd underplant the sugar maple underneath the aspen. And then I would keep track of my sugar maple and make sure it's happy. But I mean, if you've got a wall of aspen, your sugar maple is also going to be less of a target.
Have you planted spruce out here?
No, we haven't. Everything that's happening out in this area is all natural regen.
Yeah, there's a white spruce seedling right there. Yeah.
Maybe they did get planted in here. Scooter planted a few areas that I'm still, but those, I don't believe he managed to get into here. I believe those are all natural, unless he had some extra seedlings, and this is where he decided to drop them this year. Because he did have seedlings about that height that were spruce.
If they aren't planted, this is part of what I was saying when I've seen about nature's ability to recover.
Yeah.
Just, I've been watching it lately, and it surprises me, and I'm impressed.
I don't believe this area was planted at all. For the most part, we kind of stuck to like the left side of the park and doing a lot of that area of blow down.
Careful removal of the overstory.
The emerging climate doesn't look good for aspen either. Trembling aspen has a fairly boreal range, so it's not heat tolerant, right? But on the other hand, it grows fast, it's shade intolerant, it drops leaf drop. Like, it's not the end of the world to be working with aspen at this point. And the other thing about, especially if you've got marginal soils, and I can't remember your name is. John was talking about his marginal soils out there and right on his ground. That leaf drop will buffer acidity. So it'll actually facilitate a future soil that's more conducive to some of the species we're trying to manage for. Like if you were to grow, like in Europe, like I've been to stands in Germany where they've converted rich hardwood soils to spruce plantations, and after 2 generations, they look like natural conifer soils. They're completely leached, they're acidic, right? Like this is productive ground now, but if you planted just spruce here, like the industry is doing, I hate to pick on the industry, but that is the fixation. You can easily make this site acidic just through the vegetation that you grow. So to me, aspen isn't the end of the world here. That's, I think, long-term planning, I'd rather be growing aspen here than balsam fir. Despite the fact that 100 years from now, aspen in New Brunswick is not going to be happy. But there's a lot we can do in 100 years, including growing sugar maple underneath aspen.
So let's pretend this is 10 years ago. This storm hasn't gone through yet. What, I know now you kind of know what could happen. What would have been plans here for this, trying to mitigate if you had identified that, okay, I've got overmature or mature to overmature poplar, fir, spruce. What might you have done? Would you have identified this as a potential risk? And what would you have done here? If you didn't want this to happen.
Thinning?
So when you say thinning, what do you mean?
Just identifying everything that has the potential of being damaged in the wind and leaving everything else behind.
What would you have left behind? I'm just asking. There's no right or wrong answer, okay?
I'm just thinking like I don't think I would want to change the dynamic of, what's growing here.
Mm-hmm.
Just anything that's risk of getting damaged in the windstorm and ending up on the ground like this, everything else, potentially I would just keep.
So if you had cut down probably all the poplar, all the fir, you would leave some of the spruce?
Well, I would think.
Yeah. Like I said, there's no wrong answer.
And the cedar?
And the cedar. What risks would that operation possibly create?
Well, it would. The trees that I cut down may not have seedlings to repopulate. You might be eliminating some species of tree.
Yeah. And if it's fir, it's not a big deal. The other thing, and like I said, there's no right or wrong, okay? So you've left this spruce, you've left that spruce, you've left the cedar. Deanna in her talk mentioned about when you start to leave single trees around and after selection cut, they become a little more open to blow down themselves. Or stem breakages at the top is often a big thing. So yes, that is the right thing to do. Just be aware that obviously there is some wind that can come through here. We can't be sure which way the wind is ever going to come now. There is a chance that those trees could be uprooted or the tops could be broken. It's just an observation. Cedar, not so much, depending. But
If you're going to leave a tree, make sure it's a dominant tree, because they're the ones with the best roots. And
Yes. I guess one thing we haven't really mentioned either as a small woodlot owner that might be operating your own property is you're going to be largely dependent on what the market conditions are too. Yes. Because whatever you're going to remove, you need to be able to market. Right? So if I was coming into this, yeah, definitely take the poplar and go hard on the fir, probably take some of the spruce. But you want to try to leave something there, I guess. Otherwise, you just come in and you flatten the whole thing.
and that's what's happening on a number of woodlots in order to make the economics work. And we talked about that inside a little bit, is making the economics work if you have to bring someone in. Mike, you can cut a lot of it yourself, but and Andrew, you do, but a lot of people don't. And so to make the economics work, somebody comes in to this and you may end up clear cutting as opposed to doing just that selective cut.
yeah, I had a farmer in Glasgow that I'd done some prescribed cuts for, and he took me down to another site, and it would have been this before the windfalls. It was over mature fir and poplar, and he wanted me to do a selection cut in there. I said, "There's no use. It's gone too far. You're too late." And I said, "My recommendation to you: clear cut this thing, and don't stand around too long, or you'll have a poplar shoot run up your leg." So that's the way it is. So poplar, we can sell. They grow fast. What's the problem?
No, for right now. So, just thoughts. This is what has happened here, because and the stand was at the age that this could happen. And as Gareth had mentioned, we've got a lot of it across the province. In the 70s, we had the budworm go through, and it killed a whole lot of the fir. Fir begets fir. We got more fir come back. In the 90s, the 2000s, we were thinning, favoring fir. And here we are 45 to 50 years later. We've got a species that is dominating, that is mature to over to mature, shallow rooted, and now we've got heavy rains and we've got strong winds coming. Like, it's the perfect storm for this, what we're seeing right here. But we created it. Nature would have done some of it naturally, but we've really created it. So just being aware, the past history, what you got, doing nothing, that's okay. If you're willing to accept something like this, the park can make it work. It's a great educational tool as well. And if you want to try to change it moving forward, there's options.
Another observation I see a lot of this on Crown land.
Yes. We have a ton of it. We have a ton of it. Yeah. No, it's, one of the biggest questions we get is, what am I do with my fir thinning that I thinned in the 90s? I think, Gareth, we were at one time in a workshop and we had a very long conversation and diverse conversation of what to do with a 45-year-old fir thinning. I don't know what the answer was.
Well, in that case, there was nothing else to work with. It was all fir, and there was already baby fir establishing underneath it. So any partial cut in there is just going to encourage the ingrowth of fir into the canopy.
So that's where you may be looking at introducing some other species.
Yep.
You'd have to manually
And if you can't do that, living with just a cycle of intolerant hardwood. Remember that our fear of intolerant hardwood comes from 40 years of obsessing over growing softwood. There's no aspen tree that's ever killed a red spruce or a cedar. It's slowed its growth down, and the red spruce has sat there and waited for the aspen to die and then taken its place in the canopy. Right? So all of our phobias around birch and aspen and stuff is from that era of trying to get, because in all fairness to the government and the industry, they realized around 1980 that they were overcutting the landscape in response to the budworm outbreak, right? So all this obsession with growing softwood as fast as possible originally was trying to get all these young cutovers to merchantable sizes fast enough to deal with a projected wood shortage, right? They were predicting a wood shortage in the 1980s. But there's nothing wrong with growing aspen. I mean, I think it's not well adapted to the emerging climate. It's important to acknowledge that.
But it is also short-lived. So just a couple of terminology things so that we know. You've heard Gareth talk about intolerant hardwoods. In case you're not 100% sure, intolerance refers to tolerance to shade. So if it's intolerant, that means it needs sunlight to grow. That means it's coming in after a clear cut or disturbance. It'll grow. They grow very, very fast, and poplar is a big one, white birch. But they're often shorter lived. They often live 45, 50. You'll get 60 or 70 years, but that's really pushing it. And then you have ones that are very shade tolerant. These ones will grow up under, like you mentioned, the red spruce under the poplar. So they will grow up.
And naturally just wait for them to die.
That's right, because they'll outlive it. The red spruce can live 200 years.
And remember that when we generalize, it's regional. So the further south you go, that changes. Like our intolerant hardwoods are really boreal. Like there's a lot of long-lived early and mid-successional shade-intolerant trees in temperate climates, which we may find ourselves working with. So like if you're growing oak need light, big time.
Sugar maple, it can handle the shade for a while, but it needs
light to grow.
It needs light. It needs to be an opening to grow up into.
Exactly. And just because a tree is shade tolerant does not mean it's shade demanding. So shade tolerant means that it can wait for light, but no baby sugar maple tree ever made it without a lot of light, right? But oak will die without enough light.
So little things to learn. Not only do you need to know what you got on your woodlot, what's the possible risk. If you want to introduce something else, make sure you find out about it. It's called the silvics of the species. What does it need? Does it need shade? Does it need light? Those are the kinds of things you also have to try to put out. It's a little bit of work. It's kind of fun. We've built our careers around it. But this is the things as you're moving forward with your woodlot that you want to try to do.
I've been told that fir roots, seedlings, are longer than spruce roots.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Definitely.
That's where soil disturbance comes in.
Yeah.
Because out there in that undisturbed soil, there's that layer of stuff that a fir will root and reach down far enough to get into mineral soil. The spruce doesn't, the spruce dies, the fir keeps going.
Fir has a heavier seed too.
You need exposure to mineral soil if you want to get a catch of spruce.
So it's always good to learn some of these new things. Learn 4 or 5 things about our main species and you got it made. So, all right, shall we move on? So it's the 4 skates she's talking about. If you get a chance, if you like to skate in the wintertime, this is all ice. They got lights around here. Great place to come. And
Super fun.
there you go.
It's a unique experience.
It is. All right, go on to the next stop.